This is Coder Radio, episode 44 for April 8th, 2013. You're listening to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode's brought to you by our outrageously fine sponsor, GoDaddy.com. I'll tell you more about them as the show goes on. My name is Chris, but that doesn't matter because we're joined every single week by our host, Mr. Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Good morning, Chris, and I hope you're right. You have tissues and some bonbons ready to go.
I've been warned on the pre-show that I might shed a tear this episode.
We have just an episode full of just really bad news.
That's good.
Stuff.
That's good. I'm on low sleep, which means the cranky level, according to the chat room, is a little higher today. So I'm ready to tear through some stuff.
Apparently, it was not safe for work.
I'm fired up. I'm ready to go.
All right, let's do it. Let's just hit this one right out of the park on the first pitch.
Let's do it.
Khalil writes in, our ever-vigilant Ubuntu reporter, to tell us that the sales of the Ubuntu Software Center have just sucked.
So this is what I really hate about this is the worst kind of news for Ubuntu. You can talk about display server disputes. You can talk about switching to Qt, which doesn't seem like bad news at all. But what really hurts is these sales in the Software Center because it's, I think, a bad indicator. And look at this. The number one selling app is a $2.99 desktop weather app, which is also available in the Chrome web store. This is not a good sign.
That's right. And the numbers are in the hundreds for the top apps.
Yeah, okay, so let's see here. Let's see. Stormcloud has sold 140 copies in March, right, bringing its total overall sales figure to 513 in 2013.
That's lifetime overall on the Software Center.
Right. Here we got a little number here on Mr. Linux Tycoon.
Mr. Lunduke is
the only game charting this month is Mr. Lunduke's Linux distro simulator, Linux Tycoon, which sells for number 9. Isn't that interesting? Since the formal release of Steam for Linux, it's interesting to note that games no longer dominate the top 10 chart as they did in the past. I guess that is probably a predictable occurrence, right? That used to be the number one source of sales in the Ubuntu App Store. So let's see. Here we go. Here's the numbers. Number 1 is Stormcloud. MacMiriam is number 2. Fluendo DVD player number 3. War in a Box number 4. Braid's on there still is number 7. And there's Mr. Linux Tycoon at 9. When you're talking your number one app is 250 sales for the month, and it's been like that now for about 3 months that we've been watching this, maybe even 4 months we've been watching this. What do you think that means, Mr. Dominic? Bad news bears.
It means bad things.
You think it's Steam's fault?
Steam?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's Steam's fault. I think it's Canonical's fault. There are still, performance issues, user flow issues. We've talked about this before, right? It's still a little too difficult to purchase something in the Software Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no need to kind of beat a dead horse, but it's disappointing. How many months in are we to this, and we're still having these, very, very bad numbers. It's hard to stress how awful these numbers are.
Yeah, and I don't feel like, the buying process is kind of clunky is a good enough explanation to why these numbers are so devastatingly low. And I think it's sort of in some ways to me it seems like a bad indicator of the possible success that this is going to have as a desktop platform. There's just nobody making money.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I really wish it was better, but it is what it is. I think we should carry on with our awful news.
Okay, all right. So what else do you have in the awful section?
Well, so we actually have some good news. Kind of awful for Nick. Nick writes in asking if SPAs, or single-page applications, which are web apps that only use one HTML page, are crazy. The answer is no. And he's looking for tips on how to influence the technical direction of his company without stirring the pot. Nick, you're screwed. There is no, unless Chris can help you here, To me, it sounds like you want to change the development direction. And usually there's a lot more prioritized reasons other than technical reasons that a company would pick a development stack.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And it's going to be very hard for a lone developer to push the business side to do that. Now, if it's all the developers or you have a few business people who agree with you, maybe you can have a discussion. But, one guy agitating for a platform change isn't going to do much.
I've been that guy.
Yes.
And the only way you have success is if you can demonstrate good business reasons over and over and over again, so that way you and think about it, this is actually how Valve is structured as a company, and this is why you need to win over your group one by one and then have them all become your advocates, and then when you go to propose it to the next tier of people, you have a group of advocates that are there with you, and if you can convince them, then organically the idea will spread. But that is a long, arduous, obnoxious process that you will find to be extremely frustrating, because you'll reach a point and go, why don't these morons just understand the value? Why do I have to convince them to help themselves? And you'll probably get burned out. So you got to be willing to
And let's not forget the 2,000-pound raging silverback in the chat. or in the room here. Pythoneer correctly points out that if you do push too hard, you're just going to get fired.
Yeah.
Or you'll be marginalized, or you'll be that guy in the office.
Right. I was that Linux guy for a long time until we started using Linux everywhere.
And I can tell you from experience, one of the reasons enterprises will stay with the software stack, I cannot talk today, is because they often have long contracts for support with vendors.
Well, and even when something is not ideal, you spoke to this very well. I think it was last week where you mentioned that when they even know as long as there's vulnerabilities they don't legally know about, they prefer to manage something that's maybe not ideal than actually replace it because of the overhead involved in doing that. So managing it is sometimes preferable, even if it's not ideal.
Yeah, and I don't want to hit this too hard, but if your argument is purely technical, it's probably not going to matter. There are certainly cases, in many cases, where the business argument is almost more important, right?
You always got to think about
business. Moving right along.
Okay. All
right. So Juris, who has an epic name.
Yeah, that is good.
He's been coding nights and weekends, bleeding from his eyes, tears of blood.
Ouch. Oof.
Sadly, he does not work in IT. He would like to make the jump, Chris. He's doing the leap of faith, Altair style. But how?
Okay.
How, Chris?
How would you make the leap? How would you switch from development to being a server admin, Mr. Dominic?
No, other way. He does not work in IT. So he wants to go from not IT at all to development.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I actually think the switch from admin to dev is probably not that bad.
So basically he needs to start from scratch?
I would say the same advice to college students, right? Do some open source, do some projects on your own.
Scratch an itch.
Yeah, get something you can show, because that's probably the only way. And if you enjoy it, you'll enjoy it.
I mean, I fall back on this a lot, but you always got to find something that's going to solve a problem you need. That way you have the motivation to do it. And I think, starting with something that's open source too, even if you just use it for reference, just look at it. Just find something you respect.
I mean, if you want to be a web developer, develop a cool web application, right?
Yeah.
Just do it on your own. Yeah.
Totally. Or what about just go grab the code of something, take a look at how they do it, figure it out.
Yeah.
He's got a great name, so he'll make it.
All right. Now, I got crap kicked out of me by the listeners this week.
Ouch.
Lots of Java fans.
Oh, right. That didn't go so well last week.
That did not go so great. So we had the Heroku issues. And I got many emails and instant messages to the effect of, well, why not just dump Heroku? And I said, great. Give me a Heroku-like solution that doesn't require me to maintain a server. And one of the most interesting that I saw was called CloudBees.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So this is effectively what I was agitating for, right? Give me a Heroku that's not focused on root Rails. And this is Heroku focused on Java.
Is this the coolest website you've ever seen?
Yeah, and the design is epic.
Yeah, this is really cool. So, I mean, I thought that was going to be a huge contention, is that a lot of people would just complain that, well, you really were having issues with Heroku. But I thought you were making a good holistic argument, so I'm not taking away from you on that. But here we go. Here's CloudBees. Let's see. They got a free account. Remember, we were talking about how beneficial that is with Azure. get you started. You could go with this, and then same thing with Azure. You can step it up. Is this solve a problem, or is this not there yet?
Well, I haven't used them, right?
Right,
So I have
yeah.
no idea. It looks very nice.
It does look very good. It does.
Very interesting. A lot of listeners wrote in to recommend OpenStack,
Sure.
but I feel like they missed the point.
Right.
I don't want to maintain any kind of infrastructure, right?
I guess you could go Rat Cloud and fire up one of their OpenStack machines and go that route. But there's a lot. It is many times more work than the Heroku approach you were taking.
Right. There's still a bit of admin to be done there.
Mm-hmm.
But I do appreciate all the feedback, and in particular, Rackspace does seem pretty popular, which is, I use them for a number of things, but
They're quite expensive.
also is EC2.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they're expensive, compared to their competitors, yeah.
All right.
Additionally, Google App Engine was recommended.
Oh, okay.
So I have only used them once when they first came out and had a relatively not good experience. It was a Java app, and you have to be careful, right? You have to use the parts of Java they like. So if you're thinking you're just going to deploy a Java app on Google App Engine and you haven't been developing it against Google App Engine, you definitely want to check it out first.
Okay.
See what's going on there.
You might run into some surprises.
I mean, they're not deal breakers, but it's a nuisance.
Okay.
So you definitely want to check it out.
Tushar.
So Tushar, keeping with the theme of taking me to task, tells me the cloud is not ready.
I love when we get a good crank, a curmudgeon.
He made actually a rational argument.
Curmudgeon.
And his argument was basically, uptime, but more importantly, value per dollar. Fair enough, Tushar.
I'm not buying the uptime, but the value for dollar, perhaps. I don't know if I buy that either, actually.
Really?
Really, Mr. Heroku, Mr.
Well, so here's the
Heroku,
thing.
really?
To me, the value per dollar of me not having to deal with this nonsense is worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, like I don't want to deal with maintaining anything.
That's why I pay for Google Web Apps, Mail, and all that crap.
Yeah, but certainly, if you're already an admin by trade, you can probably be much more efficient than I would.
Yeah,
but that's fair enough. I mean, I'd say Tushar that you're definitely going against the grain.
Well, here's what it is. It's one of those things where it seems like you have the time and it's worth it right now to set it all up. But 5 years from now, when the main thing you're doing is the thing you're working on and no longer the administration, it's going to be a huge pain in your butt that you still have to maintain this infrastructure because you'll be maintaining that infrastructure instead of doing business. But whatever, whatever.
Or instead of doing what?
What? Instead of doing
business? Thank you. All right, now we have Crassy's email.
Hello, Crassy.
Name I butchered.
I blame you. And I had it in there correctly too. And you still butchered it.
All right, so Crassy writes.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Or if you want to go ahead and read it, Chris. Right. I can't read.
Okay. Well, he says, "Hey guys, love the show." I think he's talking about our last one. He says, "Best one I've ever watched on the subject. Since I started listening, I got inspired to try something new, coding-wise." Here's what he says. "I'm a Flash developer." Yeah, I know.
I'm so sorry.
But I started learning Android development about 2 months ago, and I built my first native app. It's Diablo 3 themed. It's using a public API to get profile data so the users can track their progress, builds, etc. I don't know if you guys are Diablo players. I know Chris was at one point. But if you are interested, I would love to get some feedback from real geek dudes on performance, looks, and all of that. By the way, have you tried to write for Ubuntu Touch, Michael? If yes, how is it? You guys think Canonical can achieve the whole convergence thing? Thanks for your time." Now, I want to start with the first part there. Diablo 3 themed app that pulls down the stats and stuff, that is so cool. I wanted that for Stowe so bad when I played Star Trek Online.
Yeah, so I threw it on my Nexus 7.
Oh, yeah?
I like it. It's pretty cool. It's definitely heavily themed, which is nice. I didn't think you could actually get away with that.
Do you remember the name? Because he didn't put the name in the...
He didn't put the name in it? Oh, that's right. I asked him to email me for it later. All right, you keep commenting. All
right. Well, I would... So, I mean, the one thing that I was going to say is I would worry about, especially if you're charging, about any maybe IP issues around the artwork, because I don't know.
App is free.
It is free. Okay, so he's not charging. Okay. So he's probably not really going to show up on anybody's radar. I don't know if it's still... Like, would Apple let you do that? I don't know. So this
Probably not.
so this is interesting, right? Of course, it would probably just depend on the mood of the reviewer that you
reviewer.
got. Yeah, they might.
It depends on if his cheeseburger was good and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I put a link in the chat. It is a very so you were right. I do play Diablo 3, or I have played Diablo 3. I haven't played in a long time,
Yeah,
so I kind of launched this and I was like, I don't know what any of this stuff means.
Diablo 3 Horrors Inn. Dude, the artwork is epic.
Yeah, like it's really, if I didn't know, I would think this is something like a small team in Blizzard was like, okay, we'll throw out a simple, character custody. That's why I don't know what they call that in Diablo.
Dude,
3.
they should contact him and buy it from him. They really should. Look at here's the character.
Yeah, but more likely they'll contact him and sue him.
Way in the future.
Yeah. No, but it is very nice. I definitely like it. Scales. It looks like it's developed for a phone, but scales nicely to my Nexus 7, which I was impressed with.
Very cool.
Yep, and it doesn't look jagged or anything.
And so we went from Flash to Android, like that.
Like that, baby.
Very cool. Very cool.
Like that.
Speaking of hitting him with a splash, making a splash, shaking things up, Mr. Dominic, you got a little bit of news, don't you? A little bit of a interesting journey this week in the App Store.
Indeed. So I put CodeJournal on sale for free as a tax relief sale because I had to cry.
Right.
When I was doing my corporate taxes.
You know how us self-employed feel this time of year.
I may have been tempted to write a number of letters to one Mr. Barack Obama.
Dear Barry. And you know what?
Dear B, what the hell?
He'd just write you back and say,
he's a jackass.
But he might get a,
hello, everybody.
You never know.
Maybe. Yeah. So I felt that I can't be the only person feeling the pain. So I decided until April 15th, which is, if you're not in the US, April 15th is the day personal taxes are due to be filed in the United States. I am putting CodeJournal on sale for free. Now, within 24 hours, it was number 2 in the developer tools section.
That is so awesome.
And number 31 worldwide for free.
That is so awesome. People love a free app, man. They love a free app, don't they?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So it has been very interesting. I kind of ran out of GitHub tokens at one point.
Oh, really?
And I quickly emailed GitHub, and they sorted it all out.
Oh man, that was a good quick fix on their part.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Do you have like a warning? Do they email you and say like you're almost out of tokens?
No, I got feedback from a customer. It's like, hey, I tried the auth, and it was like no.
Oh, good jeez.
I said, oh, but no, I emailed them, and it was simple. It was just
So the CodeJournal app right now.
Is right now you can get it for free on the Mac App Store.
Right, it's still $4.95 if you want to buy it directly on the website. But if you want to use the Mac App Store, you can go get it. You'll
get it for free. Now this is the consumer version, not the Enterprise Edition, which we haven't talked a lot about on the show, which is a per seat thing that is pretty much a totally different product at this point. But
that's
carries
cool.
Carries the same name because I didn't feel like getting 2 trademarks.
But that's a good one for like people that have an internal GitHub.
It's totally different. The consumer version can use the newest version of the Enterprise GitHub API, but it doesn't have all the features because of Apple's guidelines and all kinds of fun stuff. But yeah, I was very happy. It really climbed the charts. It's fallen a bit, but it's still 3rd in its category of developer tools.
That's awesome.
And I think it's like number 50 now. At least it was this morning when I looked.
So,
number 50 for the overall all categories free.
Now, do you think this will somehow result to revenue in the future, or is this just to spread awareness?
So this is just a sale because I was feeling bad about my taxes. There's not like I'm not twiddling my mustache. There's no master plan here. There's no ads in the Mac version for the person who's asking in the chat room. Yeah, so there's no ads. One thing I do have to do is I have to separate the iPhone and Mac version to use different API keys. Because when there is heavy usage, the requests come back slow because it's being a bit taxed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, the response has been more or less, almost overwhelmingly positive. So people seem to like it. People seem to like it for free. Yeah.
Cool. The chat room reminded me we didn't answer both parts of the question about Ubuntu Touch. Any tinglings there about Ubuntu Touch?
I don't have anything that runs Ubuntu Touch right now.
No, I have it loaded on a Samsung phone. But I'll tell you, I've seen a few apps demoed online. Basic apps, calendar, calculator, dialer. They all look really good so far. And Gwibber, I think one of the popular messaging apps on Linux has been rewritten in Qt and looks really great. So it does seem like there's some progress being made. I'd say if you just to finish that off, if you are interested in Ubuntu Touch and have the time to spare and the skills, now would be the time, because Canonical is going to be looking to feature anybody who develops a great app for them. Get in and take advantage of that right now.
That's kind of Chris's /hint to me. See how he did that?
Well, I mean, you could take that, or anybody out there could. Anybody out there could. Yeah. All right, well, we've got a little dev hoopla to jump into. Before we do that, though, I would like to take just a brief moment and thank this week's sponsor, GoDaddy.com.
Yes, I'd like to thank them too.
I used GoDaddy last night. I used them about 10 o'clock at night. That's what I love about GoDaddy. Just anytime. Sitting around, I use them anytime. GoDaddy has a great deal for Coder Radio listeners. Coder $2.95 when you check out. Get your .com for $2.95. Also works for transfers, which is what I was doing last night. I tell you, because when you transfer, you also get it for a year. So that's like a double win, because you get the transfer and the renewal for $2.95 when you use the checkout code Coder295. Were you going to say something, Mr. Dominic?
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting a lot of traffic since I did the sale, and GoDaddy has stood the test.
Oh, you're using their hosting?
And I'm just using their, I think it's just deluxe or economy hosting.
Very nice, very nice.
It's not a VPS, it's just a normal cheapo hosting plan. I've been very impressed.
You know, I've just frequently every week there's a few things that I'm always thankful I'm using GoDaddy. So this last weekend, we had a sick kid. What a nightmare that is.
Oh, that's awful.
And Angela's mom owns a restaurant in downtown Seattle and has a website for it. And she's getting somebody to work on her website. And they want to point where it's hosted and all this kind of stuff, right? And instead of calling them, so first thing she wanted me to do, she wanted me to call this web hosting developers up and get the guys on the phone and walk them through connecting to her stuff, her FTP and all that. And I just said, you know what? Let's not bother with that. I delegated control for her hosting stuff using the GoDaddy control panel to these guys for the afternoon. They're able to go in there, change all the settings they need, and then when they were done, I moved it out of that folder. They no longer have access to it anymore, and everything's done. It made it so easy, and I could go about taking care of my son. This is the thing that I really like about GoDaddy, because it is the #1 domain name registrar, and they have these kind of systems set up. You can sort of depend on everybody to be able to use GoDaddy. It's absolutely fantastic. Go take advantage of Coder $2.95 when you're checking out or transferring. Get that .com for $2.95 and make life a little bit easier for yourself. Thank you to GoDads for the longtime support of the Jupiter Broadcasting Network and the new support to the Coder Radio program. Know what I mean?
Yeah, they really do stand up, and use the coupon code. There's no sense in leaving money on the table.
Don't be a fool. Don't leave money.
Don't be a fool.
All right, let's talk a little dev world. Hoopla.
So speaking of fools.
Yeah, I need like a little fool of the week jingle.
We need a grind my gear section, just me throwing things.
Well, I do have that. I mean, we'd have to borrow that from Mr. Chase. So we'll hear it.
So Lodsys, my favorite company ever, is suing 10 more mobile game developers.
Now, just a quick backup. Lodsys are the guys that were suing for in-app purchase, right?
Well, now they've expanded.
Right. Okay.
So now they're doing in-app purchase and chat functionality.
Oh, really?
And they're going after websites too.
So they've bought some patent that covers chat and think that they have. Wow. Yeah. I mean, in-app purchases was almost understandable in some weird, sick, twisted way, but chat, really?
Yeah. So what's interesting is Google and Apple have actually worked together in the courts to fight them, and they're still just going full hog. That sucks. Like, they're, if you can read a lot about them, there's a lot of analysis that's saying that they're kind of desperate. They're trying to get these settlements in before they actually get taken to court by Apple and Google.
So since the beginning of 2013, it says here they've sued dozens of new targets.
Yeah. And of course, most people settle, right?
What's scary is they're going after.
They have a gag order.
It's not just apps, like you said, though. They're going after websites. So they're doing this, going after websites, and then they're doing this gag order thing. So then you don't have website operators talking about this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very if they didn't have a patent, this would be straight extortion. Just throwing it out there, right?
In April, Lodsys turned to mobile game studios. These lawsuits don't mention interactive chat, and so Lodsys appears to have gone back to suing over in-app purchasing. So they're doing both still.
Yeah, they're doing both.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's...
And, there's that patent group out there that's going after some big podcast networks for syndication over RSS.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And, Rackspace stood up to one patent troll and defeated them. But here's the thing. It's very costly to defend yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I would, there is a law or a bill being proposed in the United States where this is a problem, where if a patent troll loses the court case, and they should pay all your fees and your time. I would write your congressman and have them pass that, but then also pass real reform.
Wouldn't that be a start, though?
No more software patents, because there's patents on opening a file.
Yeah,
right?
That's ridiculous.
That's the problem. If you have a successful app, you kind of have to brace yourself for the patents, right?
Right. Once you get big enough, it almost has to be part of your business plan.
Right. Have an attorney on retainer. It's really a mess.
It's so unfortunate.
That's terrible news.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where it's spreading out too. It's not just. That's to me more concerning. The fact that it's not just mobile developers. The fact they're going after game studios. The fact they're going after websites. The idea that you could go after a website, that really bothers me. What if they decide that something inside WordPress or Drupal violates one of their patents, and
so that's what they're doing, right? There's something inside Cocoa Touch they say violates their patent. So they're not suing Apple. Because Apple and Google, because it's in the Google Play API, we just laugh and slap them around in federal court for a while.
Mm-hmm.
They're suing people who can't do that, right? This is the problem. They're going after the legally the weak, and that's really what it comes down to.
It really is taking advantage of a system, and unfortunately, in some ways, it's been stacked. Like there's this court in Texas they'll use that has been. I don't know what's the right word to use, but
the Rocket Docket, yeah.
The place that's always siding with these guys. It's just offensive. Gosh, and the idea that just the idea of putting it in the context of going after somebody for using WordPress or Drupal is very scary to me, and it could have major repercussions. So somebody's got to crack down on these guys right now.
Yeah, really, in the past, the patent game was the game of kings, right? Apple would sue Microsoft, Microsoft would sue Apple. Everybody would sue Google because they hate them.
Right.
And, but that was fine, right? A couple million here and there. They just traded money. But when these trolls go after small companies, they actually put people out of business.
Right, and prevent other people from going into that business.
Exactly. So it's very anti-competitive, and
it also leaves the market only available to the ultra big companies.
Which is even bad for the ultra big companies, which is why Google and Apple are trying to, they try to intervene, but not the way court works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can't just jump, it's not like school. The big kid can jump in front of you and drop the bully.
You know what we need to do?
Yeah.
We need to fork the patent system. Just fork it. Just include the features we need, modernize it for today's society and the internet, and, multi-core support, and then, not necessarily jettison it all together. Just fork it.
Yeah, it's a legal issue. I would question the validity of a non-practicing entity being able to sue on a patent.
Yeah.
Right. You should have a product or a service.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's the worst part is you have the Vulkan companies, you have the Lodsys companies where they're just non-practicing entities that can just buy up intellectual patents, IP. They just buy up an idea that's been, that's been certified by the government, I guess. Let's literally, this is what we're talking about here. They buy up an idea that's got some sort of stamp from some group of people, and then all of a sudden they get to sue people for millions of dollars. It's a crazy monkey idea that we're just in the big city jungle thinking we can make up these stupid, ridiculous rules over ideas. It's got to eventually, just the innatity of it's got to bring it to an end, I would think. But here we are in 2013, and it's worse than ever.
Yeah, and I know some people who've gotten on the wrong side of patent lawsuits. If you're a small independent software vendor, it can really hurt your livelihood. Especially if you don't have a corporation protecting you.
I'm not too worried about it, but I'll tell you, when I heard that Twit is hiring lawyers, I thought to myself for a minute, I thought, shit. I mean,
I kind of thought that too.
That would ruin me.
Why would Leo Laporte feel he needs more attorneys?
This whole thing is a little scary, and Carolla, Carolla says he's trying to put together a defense fund to go after to fight back. He says he's not going to settle. He says he's going to try to fight it, but who knows really what'll happen at the end of the day. And if they settle, oh man, if they settle, that's a bad. They're suing Discovery too for How Stuff Works podcast.
Right, and
I mean, if those guys settle on that, that's going to set a really, I would think, bad precedent.
Yeah,
that does bother me. It concerns me a little bit, and it's a very insidious way to stamp down on independent developers and independent media.
Yeah. So, moving on to more unfortunate news.
Speaking of forks,
Chrome has picked up the trident. Much like Poseidon, they've decided to rule the seven seas and horses, randomly enough. And they said, you guys, Microsoft's worried about a WebKit world. We love Microsoft. We're going to get rid of WebKit.
Yeah. Word. I mean, so this is Blink is Blink the new WebKit.
I'm sorry, Blink is the guy who wants to kill Pac-Man.
I guess we won't have to worry about the WebKit-dominated world anymore.
No.
Although this is going to be a fork, so it's not like they're starting from scratch. It's going to be essentially WebKit at first.
Right. So, in the foreseeable, let's say the next 6 months, this is going to have almost zero effect on anybody. But it's interesting, right? They're not adding a TAC Blink or a TAC Google. They're kind of going their own way. And my first thought was, so Dart hasn't been working out for you guys, has it?
Oh.
Is this a kind of a backdoor to get Dart and native client and that kind of thing?
I thought this was more about building a browser that took advantage of multi-core and ARM, but I guess that's what Chrome was originally about, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, so it's weird. The coverage on this has been very, Google's gonna make everything better, or Google's evil and they're doing it because they hate Apple. Well, the middle ground is Google did contribute a lot to WebKit, right? And so did Apple. It's probably less about Apple and more about, Google's priority has always been to HTML5, the web, as the platform, right? Chris, do you know where I'm going with this?
I don't think I do.
Well, their recent executive shakeup.
Okay.
And then this move taken together. I really think this is another little evidence in my column that Google is going to be pushing Chrome OS, right?
But you saw they just recently released a statement saying Android's not going anywhere, right?
It doesn't need to go anywhere, right? They don't need to cancel Android. They just need to start pushing the Chromebooks out.
Yeah, I would say you don't build the Pixel unless you plan to put some stank behind the platform. But
yeah.
And let's be clear, Google needs a more web-driven world to be even more profitable. The only way Google's going to make more money if people start looking at more Google ads.
Yeah, Android was a great strategy, but really their biggest moneymaker is still the web. And think about this: if they could get Chrome apps to be just as fast as native apps, I don't know, using something called the native client that is written in C++ and works beautifully. Problem is, it's not supported anywhere but Chrome.
Right.
That might be great. Or how about their Dart VM?
Well, this is. I don't mean to interrupt, but this is what I worry about here. Is man, this is great. This is really cool. We could have a nice, rich native app experience via the web browser on my mobile device, on my Linux desktop, on my Windows desktop. Synced settings, all stored in the Google Cloud. Great, awesome. The problem is it sounds like you're building another Flash. It sounds like you're building another Java, where I have to have this runtime environment on every system I use, and I don't just open up my damn web browser. And I just want to use whatever web browser I want to use. As long as that web browser is up to standard snuffs, I want all of the apps to work, and I don't want to have to use it. I mean, I use Chrome. Right now, I'm using Chrome. Fine. I probably will continue to use Chrome for a while, but the idea that they're sort of building it into this back-end engine that is going to make so much stuff on the web dependent on it, that's no good. That's not good. That's no good there. No good.
I mean, to me, this reads as a pure platform play, right?
They want to build a platform that every other platform can run. So it's like it's Chrome is the platform that runs on everybody else's platform. It's their back door into iOS, into Windows, onto the Mac itself. That's how you get, if you live in Chrome and you have all your Chrome apps there, you have all your Chrome plugins, you have all your Chrome settings. It doesn't matter if you're buying a Mac. Google doesn't care. Google's making money off you either way.
Right. And
yeah.
for right now, it is just a fork of WebKit. The question is, you know, this is kind of, it reminds me a lot of the old browser war, right?
Hmm.
The big thing on IE6 was that,
Hmm.
they had to catch up to Netscape first. And Chrome did that, caught up to Firefox really quickly, and then surpassed them in performance pretty much out of hand, right? I mean,
Yeah.
except it does run worse on Mac. But
Oh.
now if you read their PR post, they want to be able to move quicker, add features, add functionality,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So this is going to be like IE 2.0, or
Right.
I theoretically could if there's Chrome specific functionalities.
I kind of feel like it already is like that. Just from this client that I've been working with, there's a lot
Really?
of code they're writing for Chrome. Chrome has a GPU bug here for the acceleration when you're rendering, a multi-layered image file, blah, 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 blah. Like, there's already like a ton of, new version of Chrome's out. This is broken. It reminds me so much.
Well, there are small things. I know from my own experience the way Chrome does handle some graphics.
I just
But,
feel like
really,
they're
right now,
already
Chrome
moving
is-
so fast. It's like
Yeah.
you're already kind of having to write stuff for Chrome now.
I think you're writing stuff for WebKit now, because
Okay.
usually Chrome and Safari pretty much work right across each other. And maybe I'm a little saying it backwards, because I usually develop for WebKit first and then fix any issues in IE or Firefox.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
if they do this route, though, it definitely will go even more so that direction. And
Chris,
that's what's going to
come
happen.
on, you're well steeped in the first browser war. Doesn't this seem very similar?
Yep. Yeah.
Like this is almost like an echo chamber. And I understand they haven't actually done anything big yet. And I'm not saying they're doing anything evil. I'm just saying.
What's funny is Firefox is playing its role. They stepped up their versioning like an SOB.
Yeah.
They turned on silent background updates now, right? So they're trying to play the same exact game, and it's forcing them to break. So this client has a plugin, a Firefox extension. Let me tell you how much fun it is when Firefox is revving about once a month. That plugin breaks about every other release. Such a pain in the butt, and it's the plugin's bad code. But they also will have in their bug tracker. Oh, sorry, yeah, we broke this. We'll have it fixed in the next release. Sorry about that. And then people call up to get support for the site, and we say, oh yeah, just skip that version of Firefox. And so they're making mistakes, although they're getting much better. But they're making mistakes trying to compete. Google, I feel like, is introducing features that aren't totally ready, primarily in the video acceleration stuff. So far, in my experience, and I think it's interesting. And meanwhile, Microsoft's tried to keep up, but they're still only releasing so fast. IE10's okay, but they're just still kind of taking.
What's really strange to me is, and it's really ironic actually, Microsoft feels like the only one who, and Firefox is too as well. I give credit to Firefox. They're kind of like, guys, can we just stick to a standard here?
Right.
Like, it's just the opposite of what they did in the first browser. They're like, can we just agree to do everything the same way?
Yeah, Microsoft has changed their tune there. And the other thing you definitely got to give Mozilla credit for is when they propose some sort of new thing that we should all do, they're always very transparent and very open about it. It's, whereas Google's is always good for the web, but it's always equally, or if not better, also good for Google.
Let's get down to the business side of this, though, right?
All right.
You don't want to hit your sound clip?
You are? All right. I just
business. Thank you. The problem is if Chrome diverges enough, if Blink diverges enough, web projects are going to become more expensive for clients and for companies in general. Because now it's going to be one more layer of change, one more layer of we have to if check our way to glory. That's not great.
No, I think their gamble is that things like native client will be so enticing that what you'll tell people is, sorry, this site works best in Chrome.
I mean, I've done that. So I've said I've had sites say for best experience, please open in Chrome or Firefox.
Right.
But that was pre-IE10.
And we all remember the days where it was this site works better in Internet Explorer.
And that's what I'm concerned with, right? That the functionality IE6 had functionality other browsers didn't have, period. And that was really the problem.
This is like ActiveX 2.0.
Exactly.
In a little bit. Like, not as bad, but, And
so I did a formal evaluation of native client for a client.
Yeah. Oh, was it a native client? I don't know.
Okie dokie then. I mean, it looks like an impressive piece of technology. It's an interesting idea, but it's very tied to Chrome.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You're not gonna, you're not gonna open this in Safari. You're not really gonna open this in Firefox, right? This is Chrome.
Yeah, even the documentation's all hosted at chromium.org.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And Dart could translate into JavaScript for other web browsers, and it does. But I don't know. I feel like Dart has been kind of a flop.
Well, I think a lot of people are worried about what you're worried about, and they're not willing to sort of be the person that helps.
Pushes.
Yeah, helps push that forward. Exactly.
Yeah.
I would guess that, or there's not a compelling enough reason. It just seems if you're gonna it's a lose-lose. You write a web app, but you require browser-specific functionality. You're getting all the downsides of it being a web app and all the downsides of it being a native app in some respects.
Yeah, and where a lot of weirdness takes place is also CSS, which, I mean, we've kind of glossed over it and mentioned it at a 1,000-foot level, but that's where things get really messed up, right? When you start loading different style sheets for different browsers, a la IE6.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's where things get awful for maintenance, and it's just, but I'll play devil's advocate, Chris, because you seem pretty against it. There is a possibility that Blink will push the standards bodies to be a little more quick, right? So maybe Blink will be the trendsetter, and that Firefox, Safari, and IE will just kind of adopt whatever Blink adopts.
Well, okay. So let me play a little more devil's advocate. Chromium is open source. If they did something crazy, I mean, if they wanted to, another company like, I don't know, maybe Apple could take it and just rebrand it and use that as their browser if they felt like not having... Do you see where I'm going with this? Like, maybe if Google does sort of lock us into this Chromium-dependent world, since it's open source, that's not like as bad as if it was IE locked-in world. Does that sound rational at all to you?
No, because here's why. You're still going to need to support Chrome, right? So you're still going to need to do the work to support Chrome. I mean, I was having to do work to support IE6 as recently as, a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Oh, sure.
So it doesn't really matter, right? That would just be yet another browser that you have to check. Because at this point, Chrome has a big enough market share where you can't just say, forget about it.
Yeah.
And, most people who are using Chrome are using it and don't really understand it.
Well,
the engine...
though, they'll do the silent update thing, I bet. They'll start pushing out, They'll start pushing out.
Yeah, they're going to do the silent update.
Yeah. That'll be weird. That'll be weird if one day they just push out a new browser rendering engine to everybody. Just boom, by the way, totally new way we render web pages.
Well, it'll, in reality, it's probably going to work for 90% of the cases, right?
Yeah, because they're taking WebKit. They're taking their existing engine and yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's in a year when they've diverged enough and they start adding enough features, or probably 6 months, because Google speed.
Yeah, especially.
Do you start getting into a situation where it's, I can do this really great user experience. But damn it, I can only do it in Chrome. And that's going to be very interesting.
It's really close to that right now.
Right. I mean, I've been concerned about stuff I've written not performing too great in Firefox in particular.
Or here's another example. Maybe not as bad. But have I complained on this show about how horrible WebM is in every single possible way a format can be bad? Other than the license, have I? Okay, so I'll just...
I thought you signed your emails with "Please use WebM."
Right, and I encode WebM for all of our episodes because the only way to get them to play properly in Chrome is to have a WebM source available. On IE, Firefox, Safari, everything else, it will do X264 or H264 as long as that codec exists on your computer, which really everybody has, right?
Sure.
So I end up paying more for every single show just so that way I can do HTML5 video in Chrome because Chrome is so widely used. Now, what really is sort of upsetting is they initially had an H264 decoder built into their freaking browser. And that was the best times because my bandwidth bills were lower and my storage bills were lower. My encoding times were less. I mean, WebM takes double sometimes more the time to encode. It's a larger file size, so it costs me more on storage. It costs me more on transfers. It does not look as good, and I only have to do it because Chrome forces me to do it. If they didn't require me to use it, I wouldn't have to. And, whatever. I mean, it's fine. I want to support an open video format. I just wish it was better.
Yeah.
That's an example of how it impacts me in the real world, and it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, and that's one example of what they've done. And the real point is that they have enough market share where they could just do stuff, right? And you would have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do they have? Is it in 15 to 20% now in the US?
Yeah, I mean, they just one day they dropped H.264 and then they did auto updates.
Exactly.
And people started visiting the site and the videos quit playing. And I was like, oh, okay, well, so starting today, I now have another 2 to 3 hours of work for every single show I put out. Thank you, Google.
Exactly.
And that was just one day. That's how it was, and that's how it's always been.
And the bandwidth, I'm sure, is costing real world dollars.
It does, yeah. And it also, in some cases, the smaller resolution WebM file will be a larger file size than the HD X264 file. So I pay more for it too. So I'm paying more in transfer, and I'm paying more as it sits on those drives every single month just to support Chrome because one day Google flipped a switch.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's awful, right? And that's not good. And I mean, let's see how it goes. You're definitely on the angry side.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, I don't like.
I feel like Google. The thing is, we've all lived through the first browser war.
Right. This is the problem. I'm becoming a curmudgeon.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do this again. I don't want to do this again.
Right, and I don't want to do this, especially now with HTML5 being, really viable for a lot of stuff.
Right.
We got into this situation where it would just be a mess. It would really be a repeat of IE6.
Isn't native client and all that stuff trying to solve a problem that eventually, I mean, and really maybe within the next generation or two, hardware is going to be so damn fast?
Well, it's funny. Native client is solving a problem that their own V8 JavaScript engine is also solving.
See, this is what I thought.
Performance.
This is the other thing about it that confuses me. Maybe people can email encoderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com and clear my confusion here, because this also seems like it's essentially, I don't know if I want to say robbing from the efforts, but it seems like it's at least sort of counter to the efforts of what they're trying to do with JavaScript and V8 and making that awesome.
So I think the native client, the Dart stuff is really geared, mostly the native client stuff is going to be geared and utilized by developers who are doing maybe games in the Chrome App Store. Because that to me seems like the most viable place to use that.
All right, they want to make money off web apps, right?
But if you're just doing a web app, that's a web app, a normal web app.
This is truly about building an app store for the web.
That's what not just for the web, right? For Chrome OS in particular.
Well, Chrome's on going to be on everything.
Exactly.
Everything. Yeah.
Right. But think about the Pixel as a touchscreen now. What if nothing's worse than a game, and I can tell you, iPad or Android games, when the performance is bad, right? Especially if you're trying to drag an avatar or chuck a baseball or whatever you're doing in your game. Nothing's worse than having poor performance because they wrote it in JavaScript and didn't do a good job. Right, especially some of the early HTML5 games were very bad. And I just want to address someone in the chat writing native clients for existing code bases in C or C++. You're right, but a lot of folks are looking at it for game development, and it has been used for game development, and it will probably continue to be used for game development. Because if you think about it, you write your engine in C++, and you can port it to Android, to iOS, to Mac, to Windows, to Linux, to whatever. Yeah, so Chris is now crying in a corner.
Well, I am sort of reliving, because I actually think the browser war massively held back online web applications and the web economy. And I think if we go through this again, we are at such a fast trajectory of new and impressive uses for the web and new types of commerce online, and all this kind of stuff is exploding right now. And if we are drugged through this crap just so that these big companies can have their platform be the dominant moneymaker, it's just so frustrating just to watch it happen again.
Spoken like a true war-torn guy. Yeah, no, it was really bad. I mean, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
And actually, Cheeseburger in the chat. So yeah, Bastion, as Cheeseburger saying, was written in NACL for the Chrome version for the native client. So there are real world uses for it and real world examples.
Yeah.
And it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
Like if you're right, Chris, it's gonna be. No, I'm hoping that it's more about Chrome OS and that they'll try and keep compatibility with the rest of WebKit. But we'll see.
I think they see the App Store model and they think, you know what, that's gonna work everywhere.
Should we do 9 minutes of more bad news?
Yeah, why don't we wrap up with this guy, because I think this is something that you and I have been watching. We haven't really had a chance to talk about it yet.
So me and Chris disagree, I think, on the Ouya a little bit.
I've warmed up.
You've warmed up, okay. I've been something of a enthusiastic supporter, very hopeful on the
Bullish,
Ouya.
you might say.
Bullish, yes, indeed. The Verge came out with a preview or a review. Are they calling it a review or a preview because it's not out yet?
They call it an Ouya review. Can an indie console take on Sony and Microsoft?
And with a title like that, you know it's going in a great direction.
You know it. This is their Kickstarter unit, I might point out.
I'd like to say an Xbox is going to cost you, a brand new 720 or whatever they're going to call it, or PS4.
Right.
Going to be in the neighborhood of $500.
Yeah.
The Ouya is $99.
Right.
So let's just start right there.
And this is the Kickstarter unit too.
Yeah, so this is the preview Kickstarter unit. And additionally, games for the bigger consoles are going to be, very expensive. Ouya, every game has a free trial at least, right? It's not a fair comparison, really.
Right.
It's like comparing an iPod to a Mac. It's kind of slanted to me.
An iPod Touch to an
iPod Touch to a full OS X Mac Pro.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I suppose so. It also, it's sort of like it's not even the same market, because when the actual unit ships, that's when there's going to be a lot more games in there. So you're sort of reviewing at it in the pre-launch stage. So it's like, look at this. Even though there's no games yet, we're going to comment on the game selection. It's not really a fair.
And the OS isn't done yet. They've even said they have a few updates to do before their launch, which is in June, by the way.
Right.
I would. So the Verge review is very negative, right? They have some valid complaints about the controller and the feel.
Mm-hmm. I think the buttons like fall inside the.
But most of their complaints are software, which Ouya's come out and said we're not done with the OS. It'll be done in June when we ship the non-Kickstarter units.
Right.
Right.
So okay. So here's the thing. The subtext here is this thing going to ship and be a total piece of crap? And the concern is that it's going to be a flop, right?
I think the concern is that the only market for Ouya is going to be the folks like me who kickstarted it.
Now, okay, let's break this. Let's break this down. Let's break it down. Why does this matter to you? The success of this?
I don't really have a dog in the race, so to speak.
But you want to see it do well.
Well, I think there's a market. XBLA has done really well, and PSN more recently has done well. The indie section of the Steam store does well. The Mac App Store does well. iOS does well. You see where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
Independent developers have been doing really well. But, a lot of the times I download games on my iPad or Nexus or even my WinRT tablet, and I really wish they were traditional controller games.
Oh, boy, isn't that true?
Yeah. And I feel like there is a lot of opportunity here. Now, just getting back to the review a little bit, The Verge is quick to mention that it's built on Android.
Yes.
Which I would argue is not super relevant from a consumer perspective. But the false analogy they make is that, well, it's Android, so therefore all the Android apps should be available. It's not true, right? The Kindle's built on Android, but you can't download every app that you can download on the Play Store.
Right. Android is just as much as a platform to build upon as it is as a full-fledged OS. Right. You could use different components of it.
I mean, I would say at this point, Android is going to be more successful as a lower-level foundation, because we're seeing it go into refrigerators. Wow,
they gave it a 3.5.
Yeah, they gave it a bad score.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it may, I have no interest in Ouya. I have no relationship with them. I have no, I don't benefit from Ouya doing well personally.
But you'd like this as a platform to succeed for developers.
Certainly.
Yeah.
But I have no reason to push the Ouya. However, it's a little unfair to, it would be like if I asked you, hey, can I'm going to do a new app and I'm going to send you a build. Can you let me know if you see any issues? And then you go on your website and write a review of an app that's in alpha.
Right. It just doesn't seem appropriate. It was done to generate traffic at the expense of their reputation. It's a little dirty.
Right. And to her credit, Julie Orman basically drop kicked them.
The gal that runs Ouya, the partner, right?
Yeah, and she is, she's been in the industry for a long time. And if you really look into her career, this is not someone who's going to ship a subpar product, period. So, and remember, you have to remember, you really can't compare it to the PS4 and the Xbox, right? It's $100. It's a fifth of the price.
And they plan to rev it every year. So even if it's at one point now, by the time those units ship, you could almost have a new Ouya out the door.
It's cheaper than an iPod Touch or even a subsidized Kindle Fire, right? Even a Kindle Fire with their ad subsidy.
I'm fascinated by. Now I know this isn't going to sell it, but I'm fascinated by the hackability of it. Like if you have this little computer, first of all, I think it just has a huge potential to be an epic Xbox Media Center. Little XBMC app on there. I mean, I think this thing could really rock. I think there's a lot of options that you just don't get to do on the PlayStation or the Xbox. Yeah. So not only is it going to play some games, but for $100, maybe it's going to replace my Boxy box. Maybe this is going to also play some video games, do some web browsing. I mean, I'm not willing to say it's a one-trick pony.
I mean, certainly the Linux hacker set is going to have a great time with this box, just like they've had a great time with the Raspberry Pi.
And will we see a Cyanogen build for this thing possibly? Maybe they'll do something.
Maybe.
You never know.
I mean, I'm thinking more the mainstream use of it, where
yeah, and that's what you got to
someone as a gift, right? And
you got it. Oh, you know what? It is at a great price. Like I'd get this for my dad.
For a kid.
And I know you think it's funny because I think one of the things you think is a bad sign is there's like emulators that are coming out for it, right?
Yeah, I've tweeted about that.
I honestly, though, that would get me to buy it for my dad.
Okay.
So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'd be like, hey, Dad, look, we can play some, I don't know what Mario, I mean, I don't know what you're going to be able to play on there, but for $99, because, HDMI out, I hook it up to his TV, it's super easy. That's going to sell it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously have some very strong feelings on the whole emulator thing.
Right, and you would prefer to see new titles sell.
I would prefer to see new titles and not have to compete with Super Mario Brothers.
Right, yeah.
Or not have developers compete with Super Mario Brothers.
But if it gets the device in the door, it might be worth it.
Yeah. I mean, my whole point in this is, as a developer, you really need to give a platform a fair shake, right? I mean, even if it's $100 and it got, $8 million in backing, that's still a lot of units in people's hands.
Well, I mean, this isn't something that's going to be a popular view with our audience, but a lot of people, I mean, I think I might have been one of them, kind of crapped on the iPad when it came out. Called it a big iPod Touch. What's the point of it?
I kind of did that.
Everything's just going to be scaled up. Tons of people did, dude. Tons of people did.
Yeah.
But if you were one of the developers who said, nah, I think I'm going to try writing an app for that, and you got in at the right time, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Those people made a lot of money.
Yeah, they're very well off.
I'm not saying that's going to be the Ouya, but I'm saying even when there's a lot of anti-hype, sometimes you got to cut through it and just look at the fundamentals. And if you think the fundamentals are there for a platform, it might be worth your time. I think that's really what it's about.
And we'll see. I mean, one thing, again, you can't give Julie Orman all the credit because she has a whole staff, but
right.
This thing is going to be in Walmart, right? This thing is going to be in GameStop, I believe I read. It's already on Amazon.com. So this isn't the Raspberry Pi where only the super nerd set knows about it.
Speaking of Amazon, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. We'll make that our pick this week. What do you say?
Oh, I agree. I mean, and I'm going to be fair. I have a thing coming. They emailed me last week. I have no idea what they said because I just skimmed it, but it's coming.
Oh yeah, you were a Kickstarter, so you're going to get one before I get mine.
I'm going to get one, I guess, relatively soon.
I pre-ordered mine on February 6th, so I'm going to get it whenever they ship the.
You're going to get yours a bit later, probably.
Yeah, and that's that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you guys want to grab that, and we'll try it out with us. I think if this thing just does a couple of things, okay, like I said, XBMC, a couple games, I think I'm going to be a happy camper. If then later on there's some fun games that ship for it, then it's just a win-win. It'd be interesting to see. I think it'll be an indicator of its success is if a lot of other non-game controller things start to ship for it, like accessories like keyboard and mice accessories and things that aren't really used for gaming. I think that'd kind of be an indicator of how the Ouya is ended up being used. You know what I mean? Because in theory, it just takes any Bluetooth device that you could pair with it. So there could be some really cool accessories that come with it too eventually.
Right. I mean, there could even be, maybe this is just me, but custom arcade joysticks.
Yeah.
And I think in a little old school. Yeah, there's a lot they could do that would be really neat. And
I mean, because I don't think they're going to require like some sort of process like Nintendo and Microsoft and Sony do to create a controller for their game platforms.
No, I don't think they will. And just a shout out, if you work on the Ouya team and you'd like to come, hey, if you'd like to send me my development copy early, that'd be awesome. Since I only backed it for the lower amount, not the 1,000, so I didn't get the first run.
Aww.
But yeah, if you'd like to come on and talk about it, or we'd love to have you, or I'd love to have you, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We can talk about Xbox Media Center. No, I'm kidding. Just send us an email, coder. Go ahead.
radio@jupiterbroadcasting.com, and I can give you a lecture on why you shouldn't allow emulators. It'll be great.
You can also hit the contact link. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click on Contact Us, and then choose Coder Radio from the drop-down. Don't forget we're live Mondays, 9 a.m., noon Eastern, over at jblive.tv. And then we release Monday afternoons over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Mr. Dominic, where should people find you during the week?
They can find me on Twitter @Dumanuco and mdominic.com.
And you know what? For your convenience, we'll have links to his blog, our social profiles, and more in the show notes, plus links to all the things we talked about and that Ouya pre-order if you want to support the show and grab yourself an Ouya. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Coder Radio. See you right back here next week.